Welcome to Songs for Black Days, a show about music as medicine. Today we have Ben Weinman, Dillinger Escape Plan legend, now with Suicidal Tendencies, musical force, if you will. What will be your first song of the show?
Everything I'm talking about is basically dark music. It's very depressing stuff, but for me, that is really inspiring. When I hear something very sad and emotional and powerful, it gives me like endorphins. It gets me excited and it like makes me highly inspired. This album came out right around the time that Dillinger started putting out like our first music, and it's signed to Relapse Records. And one of the bands I really liked that was on Relapse Records was Neurosis. And they put out this album Times of Grace, which was just like super powerful. And it was interesting because Calculating Infinity came out around that time, and it was so opposite of that. I mean, this Neurosis album was so dark and so doomy and stayed on riffs long and like was heavy, and that Dillinger album was just so schizophrenic, but it was still so inspiring to me because it did make me feel something. I would put it on driving through the snow in New Jersey. I'd go drive in the woods when I probably shouldn't have because it was like snowstorms and stuff, but just driving in the woods in the dark with my headlights, I would listen to this stuff. So and this one song, Under the Surface, it's just this thing, it just like starts like heavy and dark and then somehow just drops so huge. It's like, again, like it just keeps getting heavier and more emotional and heavier and bigger and bigger and bigger. And lyrically it's obviously as a Neurosis did and does, or whatever.
Yeah, it's
pretty intense. I mean, it's weird to talk about Neurosis these days.
Yeah, I just look, my heart just goes out to the band and the family, really.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And you know, it's again, it's like I was saying, I've never been someone who needs to be in darkness in order to create, but obviously that guy was very dark in a very bad way. And I really like, not to get into this, but I really like how the band didn't let him get away with it.
It's really important. That's kind of, yeah.
I really like how they're kind of like called out his narcissism and didn't let him get away with the whole admitting it makes it okay, or at least makes someone feel bad, like they need help or whatever. No, that's like next level. Like
it's true. It's just true. And it's like all the narcissist, it's just like all I can think about is that the whole orbit around them and everyone that was affected, and not only the family, but also the band, like they, creating the soundtrack to so many people's lives over so many years. Like,
yes, yeah, absolutely. And like he was probably the least person I ever talked to, but I remember playing a lot of like relapse showcases for them and things like that, and it was just kind of like this orchestra of people in a way, including Josh Graham, my good friend, who was doing all the visuals. I mean, he was a part of the band even. And so there was just this this combination of things that made something very special. And unfortunately, one person can destroy that.
Yeah.
For everybody. But
yeah,
I think we can still hopefully enjoy some of the music. At that time period, I think like the late 90s, the early 2000s produced a lot of like really dark, powerful stuff. And I hate to, it's like when you found out about how abusive this guy was, I mean, they're very good at being secret, these people, so because they're not real, they're not real. They're different people with different, they're different people with different people. But I mean, it feels kind of bad benefiting off of, if any of that behavior added to the music, or the ability to make that music, or was inspiring that music, it's hard to like say, wow, I'm going to listen to it and benefit off that in some way. But I mean, you can't say that, you know, because truthfully, again, there's people who make the darkest music in the world and they're wonderful people. There's people who make the most wonderful, cheerful music in the world and they're animals.
I don't want to wake up on my own anymore.
This is a song called Asleep by the Smiths. It's on an album I think called The Sound of the Smiths or something like that. And it's basically Morrissey telling someone that he's dying and he wants them to sing him to sleep, and he's not going to wake up in the morning, and it's okay, he's not upset, he's ready, but he doesn't want to be alone. And it's just like this, it's so powerful, it's a beautiful song, and lyrically it's just kind of like this acceptance, but also this need for connection at the same time, right? When you're about to go off into the spiritual world or whatever of the physical world. And it's yeah, every time I hear that song, it makes me want to go play music or write poetry or walk in the woods or and think about what does this all mean. You know, I've been talking with one of my friends a lot about the philosophical side of religion and the afterlife, and whether or not it's would be possible for people to accept the finality of this world and still find meaning. So, in other words, not be really believe in religion or an afterlife, except that eventually this world will be gone and there will be no trace of it. Nothing. No book you wrote, no music. Eventually the entire universe, it will be gone and there will be no trace of us at all. Didn't exist. And can we accept that, live with that, sit with that, and still find meaning in this world, you know? So yeah, it's those kind of songs that make me think much more deeply about things.
That's pretty deep. I'm a believer in existential nihilism, which is like nothing means anything, but you can ascribe your own meaning. You had a near-death experience, you know. You guys had
with the bus, with the bus crash thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, any kind of, I've had many near-death experiences. Ironically, yesterday I was hanging up Halloween decorations. I fell off a ladder and had to go to the hospital. And so anyway, whatever, I shook it off, but the ambulance got there in like 2 seconds and put me in the ambulance. And the guy goes, "You're the guy in Dillinger Escape Plan, huh?" I'm like, "Yep, that's me." And he's like, He's like, "Yeah, you've taken some spills." They're like, "He's in Dillinger Escape Plan. He can get the fuck out of the ambulance."
The bulging eyes.
Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday.
Ooh, that's dark.
That is a dark, deep song. I mean, it's about this woman singing about slavery and basically Black people being hung from trees and comparing them to like bad fruit, you know, like just being treated like that, like bad crop, you know. And it's just, the lyrics are so deep and it's so heavy and her voice is so beautiful. So the band Today's the Day, another band that was hanging out in the 90s, right around the time that we signed to Relapse and started putting out music, and was very influential on me as well. And there was this song called Bugs. I think it's called Bugs Death March or something like that. It is the craziest, creepiest, darkest, insane song like you'll ever hear. I mean, it's freaky. It's scary. It's completely scary.
When did you first encounter it?
It's probably like 97. 96. No, probably no. It was before it was probably like 1996 or something like that. And Steve Austin had not really. He was just this guy in the Midwest that like seemed like he never really heard metal or wasn't listening to metal, but was doing his version of what metal was.
Mm.
And I remember just looking on the back of the CD, and it's just a guy in like a white button down, short hair and whatever. And then you listen to this album and it sounds like somebody's swallowing glass. And it's like insane. Like he's possessed by 1,000 demons. And it's just the craziest. I mean, that song particularly was just really influential on me. It just really was like, again, breaking rules.
Was it a soundtrack to a time in your life?
Yes.
Yeah. What was going on? What was going on in the world of Ben Weinman at that moment?
Well, all this stuff, like the Neurosis stuff, the Today's the Day, the
But in
OK
life.
Computer.
In life,
Well,
though.
that was like the beginning of like really when Dillinger started happening. And it was a time when, again, I had really given up on trying to please anyone with music. And I was going to be a psychologist and I was studying. And this music was just like influencing me to not do it for those reasons. That you can make this inspiring, amazing music without the hopes of becoming some big rock star. It doesn't matter because it was so meaningful to me that I had to produce. I had to use that inspiration to produce something, even though for all intents and purposes, I never expected anyone to like it really, but I felt like whoever does get it will really get it. And it's something I need to get out of me. And like this music, a lot of which was very underground. I mean, at that time, mostly, I never even met really anyone who knew Today's the Day. That they were very obscure amphetamine reptile band. And, but he was still making these amazing albums, insane albums and breaking rules and all this stuff. And this, it seemed like he was this man, like a real adult making this music. This is a song, like one of the first songs I like learned on piano and stuff. And it's just very inspiring. So Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven.
Wow.
I don't know if you're
I
familiar,
didn't know
but
you played piano.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a pianist.
Beethoven.
I might be a penis, but I'm not. No, but I mean, every musician has to play piano to some degree in order to write music, and it's the most powerful instrument. So this song is like, it's so emotional to me. It doesn't have lyrics. I'm a more of a melodic person than a lyric guy, but Rachmaninoff, Rhapsody on a Theme of Paganini.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's like a tongue twister for me. But like I first heard this song in a movie called Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeves. It's like the most romantic movie ever. And it's like about this man. He goes to this nursing home and talks to this old lady, and she sees that he is a reincarnation or something of the love of her life from whatever 70 years ago, like 70 years ago. And somehow they figure out she knows how to like do some weird. He goes back in time and re-meets her as a young lady, and they have this beautiful love of story. And then he has to come back, and then he's with her as an old lady. And I'm like, man, that sucks. I mean, she's all hot. Now you're back, you fall in love, and now you got this old bag. Sucks. But the romantic thing about it is that he still loved her, even though she looked like a prune.
And that's a beautiful thing,
There you go.
It's
there you go.
yeah. Well,
look, I want to say though, but Rachmaninoff, he escaped from like Russia, and his family from Russia, and like came to America and started composing. He only composed 6 songs in his whole life. That's it. 6. And this song is one of the greatest songs ever written. So and he wasn't very well received like before this song. Like people did not think he was very talented, and somehow he wrote this song, one of the six, and it was just like people were blown away, completely blown away. So I don't know. That's really inspiring.